Alright, we're now picking this up. Essentially what we're trying to explain and get across is the fact of multi-line and checking before you go too deep in these things what the problem and what the process would be. So understanding multi-line is a reasonable good thing to work with, but sometimes you have to add lines to drawings that aren't there. So the center line of a wall, or perhaps just the outside line or the inside line, more or less begets the other lines. The other thing you then have to realize is the concept in this drawing of use of blocks and how blocks can actually be extended by stretching in light. In this case, we're not going to see the stretching and the dynamic blocks, but realize that dynamic blocks are there. In this drawing, we see some windows that are 5 foot long and some windows that are, in fact, 4 foot long. So the concept you want to get, once again, from blocks is the fact that you are going to draft always on layer 0 for those blocks, and so I'm going to go ahead and draft up these blocks and then think about where you're going to place that tick per se. So I'm going to draft up here going at from setting our layer to be layer 0. It's a universal chameleon. I'm going to go click here at 4 feet at an angle of 0. In this case, you remember those walls, you have a little tick there, so offset 2.5 one way and the other, right? And then that little line here from the end point there to the end point there, and then offset through from there to the end point, and then deciding what's the most important thing then in a drawing and when you make a block is where is the center of the block. And in this case we made this. I'm going to go ahead and point out that you can do block to make a block, but really minus B is a better set of commands. Minus B, block name. In this case, I'm going to go window. I'm going to check this, make sure I get the length right. That window is 4 foot long, so I'm going to make it window dash 4 feet. Minus B for block, window underscore no spaces and blocks, and front load names, and then I'm going to go 4 underscore 0 for now. 40 window 5 foot. This in fact would be a particular one with a 5-inch wall, but getting a sense of front end loading your names. Insertion base point, shift right click the midpoint of this, selecting your objects, and then in this case that was a 4 foot window, so we can learn how to do I for insert, get the 4 foot window here, bring it in, and then learn to X for explode. We can offset 0.5 out to here, or we could have scaled if we would. Remember, 0.5 has to be 5 feet. Offset 6 inches. In this case, you'll see these blocks would be actually dynamic blocks. You would have one block that was stretchable, and I'm not going to do that case here. Extend, screw that, here to here. This now is going to be minus B, window underscore 5 underscore 0, 5 feet window. Insertion base point is going to be the midpoint of that, and I have a second window block. Door swings we'll do a little bit different if we would. We're going to go ahead and make the smallest door swing or the most standard, and that in fact is 2 feet. We'll go do a 2 foot 8-inch one. So I'm going to take here and draw a line here, and I'm going to basically go at 5 inches north 90 degrees and just a little line there. I'm going to offset 2 feet 8 inches, take this across. Draw a circle if you remember. Do a lot of circles from the end point to the end point. Alright, line perhaps from the end point there to the end point there. Left click spacebar, rotate 45. And now I can trim. Now we're going to trim based on here and here. And I effectively have what is a door swing. Depending on the case, what I want to do, we'll go it like that. That's a door swing. Minus B for block. Door underscore 2 underscore 8 in this case. insertion base point is the endpoint there. Remembering all these hopefully are on layer 0. So now as we go through and go ahead and put these things in later, we're just going to try them when we're going to change to our layer. Our layer now might be windows or doors or object. I'm going to go just try object right now. I'm changing the layer to object. Somehow it's not showing it to me. Now if I insert and I go window for something like a 4-foot window, I can grab that. I'm going to specify on screen where it is and would be at the intersection point there. So that window is in there even in this demonstration. So you can go through and put your blocks in that way. We'll show a door. I for insert. This door is going to be a 2-8 door. Okay, from this case the endpoint's not going to work here because if you remember that door, that's a 2-4 door. So we can then go to left click, spacebar, 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 scale, reference from at to the endpoint to the endpoint. So that ability to scale something down, even though that's not too standard because it'll look a little odd. Alright, so you get this idea of putting blocks in. We're now going to finish this up so we can keep it within these 3 videos with the idea of multi-line, which you would generally not do. I don't want to say that too much, but you know, reality, there'd be other tools to use. So multi-line is limiting, and I'm telling you the limiting fact of multi-line is that once you put one down, you cannot redefine it. So that said, go to Format, Multi-Line Style, and we're going to go ahead, not multi-leader style, but we're going to go to Format, M Multi-Line Style, and we're going to go ahead and make a new one. Our new one is going to be wall, if you would. In this case, it's going to be pretty straightforward. I want to go ahead and make sure that this one is going to be left and right. We're in an architectural drawing, so it's 2.5 on the left. I'm sorry, on the right, and 2.5 on the left. So one is negative, and one is positive. So I'm going to go ahead and modify that. You see that's minus 2.5 and 2.5. And you'll see later on, you're going to start and end with caps. We'll see if that's in fact how you lay it out. You're going to play around displaying joints. You can coalesce. We'll see whether you can change these things later, but there is some ability to change. So let's try that out. The big thing now with multi-line style is we're going to set it current, and we're going to once again go to a layer called object. On that now, ML style. You're going to make sure you're going to use the command mline or multi-line, and you're going to go for justification. Your justification is going to be 0 when you're laying it out this way. You're going to go from the endpoint there to the endpoint there to the endpoint there to the endpoint all the way through. Logically, at least on your house, if you would be the exterior wall. So you're thinking later on, and we can take it now to the doorway, and hopefully that closes up, and you see that it does. We'll now continue. I actually went in a negative direction. I should probably have gone positively, so I'm going to do that this time. M line from the endpoint there to the endpoint here to the endpoint there to the endpoint there to the endpoint there. So you really thought your wall out per se. Now you can start working your way through, and you can then do things like M line. We'll see whether you can do from the endpoint there to the endpoint there, and you're going to see there's going to be then an ability to come back later and fix M line from the endpoint there to the endpoint there. In this case, to the endpoint there. And that was just a line, so we're going to undo M line from the endpoint there to the endpoint there, to the endpoint there. Once again, in a positive direction from the endpoint there, to the endpoint there, to the endpoint there. And you don't have to always make things in the positive direction, but from the endpoint there, to the endpoint there, and perhaps from the endpoint there, to the endpoint there, spacebar from the endpoint there, to the endpoint there. And what you'll see is if you do things by this way, you've really taken the skills in the 2 different skills where you can do a lot of things by offset. Once again, these are just coordinates. It is not, you pre-think things out and look for patterns, and you should be generally okay. We're going to now do M line from the endpoint there to the endpoint there. Once again, from the endpoint there to the endpoint there, to the endpoint there. Once again, from the endpoint there, from the endpoint there, to the endpoint there. Now, we're going to go ahead and save this in expectation you're going to have some more issues later, but we're going to go ahead and file, save at this point in time. Now, this is in fact where every now and then a book is good, so learning to go into the help with multiply line or modify. It looks like there's a modify someplace for multi-line. So we're looking for object style, clip, object. That's a really weird place to to change a multi-line, but we're going to have these choices here. So we're going to go ahead and see if we can actually look at a open T. And so we're going to grab this line and didn't do it, so we're going to try it again. Modify, object, multi-line, and we're going to look for these ones that kind of cut single. Let's see if we can cut single here. That kind of did it. That's not bad, and that's kind of like a break, isn't it? So now we can see if we can do a modify, object, multi-line, and let's see, open T. This one and this one. Not too bad. Not perfect, but not too bad. So we'll try and see if we can just do that one and finish that out. Modify, object, multi-line, close T here and here. Doesn't work. Modify, object, multi-line, merged T. Let's try that one. This one and that one. Not yet. So you get the general concept of, if you're not doing this a lot, you're better off exploding and fixing things in the end, but later on you'll see the general bits of this. I'm going to go ahead and pause here, figure a couple things out, and then come back and finish this up in terms of the multi-line stuff.